I was in the middle of making a video about how to play Sombra in Overwatch 2 when the Sombra nerfs leaked. So instead, I pivoted to a video talking about balance as a whole while I waited for those to come out so I could include those things. Then I finished that script, but Wrath of the Bride came out alongside its bullshit monetization, so I wanted to make a video about that as well. And then those Sombra nerfs actually came out. Like the brain-damaged goblin that I apparently am, I decided I should write a fourth video script before releasing a single scripted video on this channel to talk about those nerfs and why they're yet another instance of Blizzard not fixing the actual problem that people have with Sombra. So that's what I'm going to do today. As a Sombra main, I'm going to tell you why these nerfs are a no-win situation, not just for me, but for you as well, why Blizzard doesn't understand how to balance this hero, and what changes would actually address the frustrations that people have with her. But before we start, I'm going to lay it all out there. I didn't actually think she needed a nerf. She wasn't too strong. She was annoying, sure, but half the roster's annoying. People just refused to protect their teammates so she was able to run rampant. That's not a problem of her being overpowered, that's a problem of the entire Overwatch player base wishing they were playing literally anything other than a team-based hero shooter. You guys are demanding that chess play like checkers because you think it's bullshit that the knight can move like that, and I want it on record that that's what's happened here. However, reality is, the nerfs have happened. They cannot be stopped. Over the last half-decade, Blizzard has made an uncountable number of poor balance decisions, and it takes months, if not years, to ever correct them, if they bother correcting them at all. Instead of arguing that she should have been nerfed, because that won't go anywhere, I'm going to talk about how to actually nerf the parts of her that piss people off, because if you guys are going to force me to play checkers with you, let's make sure it's at least a good game of checkers. To recap the nerfs, in case anyone's not familiar with them, they were nerfs to her hack's functionality. Hack can't be chained anymore, damage boost on hack targets for Sombra went from 40 to 25%, and her ability lockout went from 1.75 seconds to 1.5. The problem with this is that her hack's functionality isn't really the problem people have with her. Or at least it's not the problem people are angriest about, and it's not going to fix those problems. This nerf is going to make it harder to secure kills with Sombra to some extent, but not impossible. She's still going to functionally play the same and do the exact same things that annoyed you, just a little bit worse. She's going to secure fewer kills, but she's still going to be equally hard to secure a kill on. She's going to be able to pick on your supports, and she's going to be able to be an assassin. Reducing her hack damage boost from 10 max damage per bullet to 9 is going to make a difference for pros, but let's be real, majority of people playing Overwatch aren't good enough for that to be a consistent difference maker. Same goes for shaving an extra 0.25 seconds off the ability lockout, and the same goes for chaining hacks. It's going to make her feel worse to play for sure, but it's not going to save your Zenyatta from me in the backline when you leave him alone for the 20th time this match. She's definitely useful in big teamfights for those things that are being nerfed, and it is going to have an impact there. But frankly, her real impact, and the thing that makes her so frustrating to people, is her core gameplay loop, and this doesn't do shit to stop that. Sombra's core gameplay loop is as follows. First, find your home base health pack. Hack it, drop a translocator on it, get going. You're going to want a mega ideally, and you're going to want to aim for one that the enemy team won't be able to stumble upon, but which is still close enough to the fight that you can quickly rejoin it. Next, go invisible, start scouting. You're looking for someone who's vulnerable, someone who's alone, someone you're confident you can kill in under 10 seconds, and someone you think you can probably kill before they can kill you. If you have a coordinated team, you'd find someone you can collectively focus. But if you're playing Overwatch at a level where that's a consistent reality for you, then I can't help you. I'm not helping people at that level of gameplay. If you're an average Overwatch player, you're going to be preparing for this under the assumption that you will not be helped in your fight. Maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised, but don't count on it. Once you've picked your target, time for the next step, engaging. Hack them from invis, preferably from above, behind, or above and behind. You want to ensure you have time to execute the hack, de-stealth, and begin shooting before they have time to lock eyes and shoot back. Now that you've engaged the enemy, time for the final step, the gamble. You've got to weigh the risk-reward analysis of staying in this encounter at every millisecond of the fight. If you're winning the fight, stay, finish the kill, keep going. If it starts turning against you and you think you can't win, translocate out. For Sombra, being a coward is always preferable to being dead. Save yourself a respawn cooldown and try again in a few seconds. Even if you didn't kill them, you are still rattling their cages and splitting their team's focus. To counter Sombra, it's horror movie rules. Don't wander off by yourself, run out the door instead of up the stairs, and don't panic. Work together to survive, otherwise she's gonna get you. Now, I want to ask you, the viewer, how do any of those nerfs stop that from happening? Being locked out of your abilities for a quarter second less is not going to save you. Sombra's max damage per bullet sounds like it's making a big change, going from 40% to 25% damage boost, but it's a difference of 10 damage to 9 damage per bullet. And she just can't chain hack you anymore. But newsflash, Sombra can shoot 20 bullets a second for 3 straight seconds before she has to reload. And frankly, if you're getting chain hacked in a 1v1 with Sombra, you are the problem, not the hack. You deserve to die in that fight. Pre-nerf, Sombra could deal 350 damage in the 1.75 seconds where you were locked out of your abilities if she was in optimal range and didn't miss a single bullet. For context, she could deal 245 damage in that same amount of time on an unhacked target, which is still enough to kill almost every DPS in under 3 seconds, and doesn't rely on her spending time on a cast beforehand. Sombra's reload time is 1.4 seconds and the hack lasts for 10, so if a Sombra is going pedal to the metal for the full duration of hack, she can fire 60 bullets, reload, fire another 60 bullets, reload, and fire another 20 bullets for a total of 140, capable of dealing a maximum of 1400 damage before a hack has expired. Post-nerf, Sombra can deal a max of 270 damage to a hack target in the 1.5 seconds that the ability lockout is in effect, compared to the 210 she could deal in the same amount of time to an unhacked target. Hack's max duration is still 10 seconds and her rate of fire hasn't changed, so over the course of a hack, she can still fire 140 bullets for a maximum potential damage of 1260 before it runs out. If you were annoyed by Sombra before and you weren't a GM level player, no, not in your head, in real life, let's be real here, then this won't change anything for you in terms of how Sombra is able to piss you off. As a Sombra main, this is going to make her feel worse to play for sure, but it will not fundamentally change how I play. In fact, it arguably incentivizes me to find the backline picks even more than before. This change makes her slightly less useful in teamfights in most ranks, meaning I'm better off beating your Zenyatta like a drum instead of trying to kill your tank. I hope by now I've convinced you, and we're all on the same page that these nerfs aren't doing anything of value. For a supermajority of players, in an overwhelming majority of fights, this will not change anything for the better. It slightly raises Sombra's skill floor by necessitating better aim, which is GG for me as a Sombra, I'll admit it. But fundamentally, it only makes everyone unhappy. You're still dealing with Sombra being a menace, and I'm annoyed because she just feels a bit worse. Like the feeling when a new frying pan starts sticking. So, let's talk about how to actually balance her. Blizzard sucks at it because they try to look at the stats and the raw numbers on paper to determine how to balance a character, even though Sombra's impact isn't best measured by her numbers on paper. Sombra's damage isn't the problem with her. It's certainly not the problem that people are claiming they have with her. And if your goal is to make her less of a menace, or at least a more manageable menace, that has to be the focus. For my purposes, I'm also going to assume that we're reversing the nerfs to her damage on hack targets as well as the ability lockout. Although we can keep the nerf that blocks chain hacks. That honestly is not as much of an issue as people like to think it is. In this video, I'm going to present 2 ways to nerf Sombra that would simultaneously address people's grievances while also making Sombra more engaging to play, to be honest. The leash approach and the glass cannon approach. Taking the leash approach would mean nerfing Sombra's translocator and stealth, to give either or both a time limit. Currently both abilities have infinite uptime, meaning Sombra can afford to be patient. You can drop a translocator whenever, you can go invis whenever, and you can sit behind the enemy lines waiting for the perfect time to strike for as long as your heart desires. In the old days of Sombra, when these abilities did have time limits, Sombra's gameplay loop was a lot quicker and a lot tighter, and had to be more precisely timed. You had to have a plan in advance, and when you engaged, you had to keep track of your own health as well as the time remaining for the translocator. And bad Sombras were often either dying because their translocators expired, or were forced to translocate out before securing kills because they didn't manage their timers properly. As well, you could only stealth up to a certain range, meaning that you had to take riskier direct routes to ensure that you could get where you needed to go before it ran out, rather than taking the safe long routes that you can take now. Both abilities having timers meant that Sombra was effectively leashed to whichever health pack she was using as a base or wherever else she put it. She couldn't go in spawn camp or stalk the enemy supports for the entire match because her abilities would either yank her back or leave her stranded if she did. Taking the glass cannon approach, on the other hand, would mean leaning into Sombra's capacity to deal damage, but also making her more vulnerable as a direct consequence. If you're unfamiliar with the term, a glass cannon refers to someone or something that is very powerful but also very fragile. Something that needs to be a high priority target because, while they're pretty easy to stop, it needs to happen fast before they have time to wreck shop. Sombra's time to kill is defined as much by her enemy's health pool as by her own. She needs to be able to secure kills before her own low health forces her to escape the fight. Sombra's often compared to Tracer, but the difference there is that Tracer's abilities enable her to prolong a fight. Her 150 HP health pool is necessary to counter the fact that she can undo the damage you've done to her, and is incredibly evasive within a fight itself. It's hard to kill a Tracer because she's hard to hit. It's hard to kill Sombra because she can enter and exit a fight pretty much whenever she wants, and usually on her own terms. To take the glass cannon approach, you would need to reduce her spread a little bit to give her more precision. Personally, I would suggest going from 2.16 to 2 in terms of the angle radius on her max spread, as well as reducing her health substantially. I would suggest to 150. The problem here is that this is an accommodatable nerf in her core gameplay loop, but in a team fight, it makes her too weak. So instead of this being a constant nerf, I would make it conditional upon her translocator being active. At any time when her translocator is active, max health drops to 150 and spread drops to 2. Otherwise, max health is 200, spread remains 216. If Sombra's translocator is destroyed, either by an enemy or by herself, her max HP and spread immediately revert back to their original states. All of this would force Sombra to think more about the decisions she's making in her gameplay loop, and increases the risk element of the risk-reward substantially. If she destroys her translocator, she increases her health pool but sabotages her escape route and makes her gun less deadly. If she keeps it, she stays vulnerable, but she's also more deadly. Taking the leash approach would mean that Sombra is still strong within her effective range, but would put some pretty hard caps on that effective range. Taking the glass cannon approach would mean that Sombra has to think more about the decisions she makes, and she's forced to make herself more vulnerable if she wants to maintain her escape route. Either one of these approaches would do infinitely more to address the real problems people have with Sombra than Blizzard's nerfs do. Namely, her gameplay loop feeling like bullshit when you're on the receiving end, while still keeping Sombra impactful and engaging to play. Either of these philosophies would make her harder to play, but I don't think that's inherently bad. She can have a massive impact on the game, so I don't think it's unreasonable to expect people to get good if they want to get that out of her. Personally, if it were up to me, and the option of no nerfs wasn't on the table, I'd advocate for the glass cannon approach. I want Sombra to be impactful, but I also do really like the idea of it being a riskier choice to engage. I like the idea of having to make a trade-off that makes me more powerful in the enemy backline, but also more vulnerable at the same time. It makes it even more essential for people to work together as a team to kill me before I kill them, and at her core, I think the value Sombra brings to Overwatch is that she punishes uncoordinated teams. It's a team-based game, and the glass cannon approach to Sombra balance would make it even more rewarding to play as one against her, while also making it even more impactful at penalizing uncoordinated teams as Sombra, making it easier for a good player to punish her if she chooses her target poorly. It would open up way more possibilities for strategic play from Sombra's, and would turn her translocator from a get-out-of-jail-free card into an ability that has real trade-offs that need to be accounted for and weighed against each other when you're playing her. Like I've said throughout this video, I really don't think Sombra needed these nerfs. I think that Blizzard caved to pressure from a segment of the community that wants their chess game to play more like checkers, and it does not fill me with confidence in Blizzard to see that they haven't learned from their mistakes with balance in Overwatch 1. However, if they are going to balance Sombra from a position of accommodating these players, then those balance changes need to be based on addressing what they're complaining about. Again, namely, her core gameplay loop. These Sombra nerfs don't do that. Sombra is only going to feel worse for the people who play her, and she's not going to feel any better for the people she's playing against. And I'm sure that in a few weeks, we're going to see even more clamoring from the crowd that Blizzard just acquiesced to, who feel like Blizzard needs to go even further because these nerfs didn't fix their problem. And I hope they don't listen. If they implemented the changes that I've proposed here, which, it's not going to happen, but let me dream, we'd see Sombra become more useful, but also more manageable at the same time. We'd see skilled Sombra players thriving, and poor Sombra players struggling. I don't want Sombra to be so powerful that she's a must-pick, but I also don't want to see her nerfed to the point where she's being treated like a throw pick. We've been in that position before. I don't want to be there again. And ultimately, I don't want Overwatch to fall out of balance. Overwatch 2 is genuinely in a really good place, and I don't like the idea of Blizzard fucking it up to try and appease a small number of players. With that, I'm going to end my rant. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be putting out a few more scripted videos soon, the ones I talked about at the start. So if you like this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. If you want to see some of my comp matches from this season, you can check them out in the playlist on the top left, and if you'd specifically like to see my Sombra gameplay, I've got a whole playlist of those in the top right. I stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 7 to 10 p.m. Mountain Time, and I'd love it if you'd stop by and say hi. Links to everything are in the description. See you soon.